In this Grasshopper tutorial, I want to show you how to make a parametric Voronoi puzzle. As you can see here, we can change the number of those counts and decrease or increase them. We can have a new Voronoi set. We can also change the size here. As you can see, I can change the size of these things, which will make the connection. And also we're going to define a rotation, which will help us to produce those circles, which I will explain in this tutorial. So I'm going to talk about this from scratch. You can also download this from our website. So let's get started from scratch by defining going to the mesh and the triangulation. I'm going to use the Voronoi cell here. Okay, so let's just put this here. I'm going to put up the bifocals plugin so you can see what I'm doing. And first of all, we have explained about the Voronoi. I will put up a tutorial which is related so you know how the Voronoi works. But let's say that we want to make a Voronoi in a rectangle. I'm going to go to the vector and go to the grid and use this populate 2D to make a series of random points in a rectangle. So this is the easiest way of making that. You can see the default is a region, which is a rectangle, a number of count, seed, and points. So what we want to do is to define the region of this. We can simply just right click and set a rectangle here, or if you want to have control on the size of the region, you can go to the curve, and in the primitive section you can find a rectangle here. Down here we will have a rectangle which we can give it here and give it an X size and a Y size. It is a domain input, but if we give it a number, for example, if I give it a 12, 23, it's going to say from 0 to 23. Okay, so remember, if you give a number to a domain, it's going to control that by starting from the 0 to that number. So we can give that to the X and the Y and control that. Now the number of the counts, you can say from maybe 20 to 200 and increase the number of the counts of those random points. And also by giving a seed, we can say from 0 to 20,000, doesn't really matter. A number that can change the location of those points randomly, but remember, whenever I just put that to 10, you can see that we have these points here and here. If I change that and again return back to 10, you can see that those points here are here. So the problem, so here we have a popular 2D which we can control by changing this number and also knowing the location. Okay, let's go to the points and give that to the Voronoi cells. You can see it here. We have to give this a boundary, which is completely a rectangle. We can give that region. We gave it here to this one, and we'll have complete Voronoi cells, which you can control here by the numbers and by the seeds. Okay, we want to make those Voronoi cells into the puzzle parts. So what we want to do is to make those things like this on the edges. The problem here is two things. One of them is to get rid of these edges because we don't want a connection here, right? We just need them inside. So the first one is to get rid of these one, and the next one is that the small edges you can see here, or maybe let's just zoom in, for example, here you can see that they are too small to make a connection, right? So we want to get rid of those two. I'm going to do that into two steps. So first of all, I'm going to go to the curve and use this explode tool to make those into segments. And because we want to work with that, we're going to just flatten this so we have all of those segments in one group because each of them was in one of those cells. Okay, now what we want to do is to find those edges on the rectangle. That's easy. What we want to do is to go to the curve and use this point on curve tool, find the mid point of the edges and say, is that point inside the rectangle or not. Okay, so we know we need to go to the curve and the analyzers. We will have this down here. Let me show you the point in curve. We can check out if it's on the curve, inside or outside. So we want to check these mid edge points with, let's just turn this off. With the curve we want to check is the rectangle, and now you can see that there is a relationship. Okay, the relationship says that if it's outside it's going to give us a 0, if it's coincident it's going to give us a 1, and it's inside it's 2. Okay, so perhaps we will just have coincident and inside because there is no point outside the rectangle. What I want to do is to do a trick here and say if this is an x, if we give it a -1, the coincident, let's just make this a red one, the coincident is going to be 0 and the inside is going to be 1, and that is the exact thing we need, the true and the false, to switch out those curves, right? So what I want to do is to say go to the math and minus that relationship with 1, so we will have ones and zeros, and now we can simply use that 1 as true and a 0 as a false to use the dispatch. If you don't know about the dispatch, I will also put a tutorial up here. Just watch that. We have talked about how to use it in Grasshopper with a long tutorial. We have talked about this. So let's just go and say we want to dispatch these segments with this logic that it's true and false. Let's see that. That's the list A. Let's just turn everything off, which is inside the rectangle, and then we will have the list B, which is outside, right? So we can just use that later, but let's go inside that and see how we can use those connections. The next step was to get rid of these small and not useful edges. I'm going to go and connect a number from the params menu. That's a trick to find the edge length. You can see it's going to find the length of that. And again, we're going to say, let's just bring this a little bit forward so we can control it better. We can say that is it in the math smaller than. So I'm going to say smaller than. You can see that there are different lengths. Maybe we just don't need those which are smaller than 0.5. So I'm going to give a number slider to this, maybe from 0.1 to I don't know, 2.5. It's based on your project and your size, so remember to control that. And again, we will have a series of true and false. Now we can dispatch that. The second step is to dispatch the list we want to dispatch, the logics. And again, we will have two series here. You can see that we don't have any, turn this off. We don't have any edges small here, so I'm going to increase this number until we reach. Okay, so remember that is in your control for your puzzle, maybe that are too small to use. I'm going to decrease that to maybe reach, okay, or maybe increase that. So these are the numbers we want to get rid of, and these are the cells which will be connected. So for this cell we don't have any connections for these two edges, or maybe this one. Maybe by increase or decreasing that we will have more better results. Okay, that's a better one because this one just has this two edges off, and it's going to connect anyway by these connection, right? So we will not have any problem here. We even have this one, so it's okay. We can even change that later. Let's go to the next step, and that is to make those connections. I'm going to use a technique here where you go to the curve and use this point on curve to find the center of that. And I'm going to, let's just draw this with a circle. Draw a circle here, find these 2 points, right? And I'm going to use the arc, let me just type this here, SED. Start, let me just go to the curve primitive here, arc SED. It's the start and direction. That's going to be cool. And when we have these 2 points, we're going to say one of those arcs are from here to here with direction. We'll give that, and it's going to also make that happen like here. So it's a trick I have used to produce those connections. I'm going to go to the circle and give that to the circle. Again, we have to control the radius here. It's based on your project. Remember to just change this based on your connections, and we're going to decrease or increase that. Okay, and I'm going to go to the intersection. This is really cool. You can find the intersection between 2 sets of curves. I'm going to say intersect these curves with the circles, and you can see that all of them will have 2 intersections. Let's extract this. We have talked about that before in the sets, and with the list item here we can extract those points. This is going to be the index 0. If you don't know about these things, you have to watch the Grasshopper tutorials for the beginners, and I'm going to just add this up. So this is going to be the 2 points for this one and this one, and let's just connect a point to the mid edge here. Okay, remember that each of them are in groups, so this point is in a group, this one is in a group, but this one, the center of the edges, is not in a group. So what we have to do is to graft this thing up, so we'll also have them in groups, and you can see that the connection is also just a simple line. And if you don't know about graft, I will put up a tutorial up here which you can also watch about data trees and know why we flatten or graft. And remember, you can also join our course if you want to know more about this. So if I just, you can see that they are all in one group. I'm going to graft that up to make that into each of those separate groups. Now what we have to do is to go to the curve, to the spline, to the primitive, and here we have the arc start and direction. Here we go. The start will be here. It's like here, the end will be here, and now we have to make a direction. I'm going to use the edge as the direction. How is that? Let's just bring this a little bit forward. This is a line. We can use that as a vector. I'm going to rotate it, rotation 3D, with the center of here we have this. Okay, there's a problem here because this is in groups, but this is not. So let's just graph this up also, so all of them operate correctly. The axis is the Z. That's fine because we want to rotate each of them on the Z direction, right? So remember, we need that Z. Let's just right click on the angle and find a degree. Define that as a degrees. I'm going to go to the top. We can just say 20 degrees to maybe 160. Okay, so that is going to give us a control on the start and the direction here. So if I give that to the direction, let's just turn this off. We can see that that's happening. Why didn't we need this second part is that because each of these cells are assume that this is one of the cells. I'm going to show that with a red one, and this is also another cell. Okay, let's go with yellow. We exploded this edge and this edge, so it's 2 times, but because the directions are different, it's going to always cover with one of those edges. So remember, you can do that, or you can just make that change to one of those 0 and 1s. Now if I just rotate this, you can see, let's just turn everything off, and you can see that small connections, let's see, the edges are being modeled on each of those edges. So remember, you can control that, and you can also control this by changing the radius of the connection. That was really cool and fun to do. What's next is to we had these connections here. The list A was those who we deleted and they don't work on. So remember, you can always change this number. If you want to just decrease that, it's going to put up on more edges. So remember, you can do that also, but the connection is fine because the Voronoi have many connections here, and it's not really important to have too many connections. That's fine. Okay, now how can we have this one here. How can we make those edges? I'm going to do that with a trick here. So what I want to do is to connect the point. Let me just connect a point to this. This is the connection of the first edges. Because we have two edges, the direction is different. We will have 2 points, one on this edge and another one in this edge. We just have to connect that to the start of those. So I'm going to go to the curve and select a point on curve, connect that to the base curves and say start. You can also select end, but I'm going to use the start. And now we can just simply connect these two to a line. In the curve section, the line with 2 points. And remember again, this one is in groups, but this one is not. So if I connect that, that's going to give us lots of connection. You can see it's going to go insane. I'm going to graft on the input here. Okay, so that's all what we need. Let's just turn everything off. And you can see that's beautifully done with the connection. Now we have to also use the small connections we had here. We just didn't use it. We're going to put it up here. Remember, you can increase or decrease that number easily by changing the first step, the second step of this patch. That's it. We're done. We just need to make those puzzle sections. I'm going to go to the intersection, physical, and use this surface split to split the surface into sections. Let's just do that. The surface split. The surface we want to split is the rectangle. If I connect that, that's going to say, okay, the rectangle is a surface. So that's a shortcut for this. And now we have to split this with all of those curves. Because we have lots of groups here, I'm going to right click and flatten this. So all of them are going to split the surface at once. So remember, we have to give this a line. I'm going to use the shift key here. I have to use the arc, so the arcs are going to split, and the small ones. We don't need those edges at the rectangle because it's going to anyway split the surface. Okay, just turn this off, and we are good to go. You can see that we have, let's just make this, and that's shaded. You can see that we have those connections, and it's beautifully done. So remember, you can do that. You can even delete some of them if you don't want to have those puzzles, just maybe a gap right here. That's going to be insane. And it's going to be beautiful if you want to just delete these in your project and put it as a gap. So that is how we can do this. Let's just delete this one. Get that back because I just hit the Control Z. And now what we have to do is to just simply connect a curve from the params menu to get the boundaries. That's it. So you can see that that is beautifully done with all of those curves outside. If we want the numbers, we can just simply say surface area, find the centroid of these surfaces, and go to the display and use this point list to just give them a number. If I just give that to the centroid, and you can bake that if you want to, just see the numbers here. So these are the numbers in the computer, but you can also rearrange them if you want to. And then you can also give it a size if you want to see it on the viewport. And let's just turn this off and make this a little bit smaller. So maybe you can use that plan and print it out if you want to give the person the connections, and also you can just have them on the surface if you want to. If you want to just have these as a curve, you can go to the display section and use this dimensions tag 3D. You can just give this the location is at the centroid. The text we want to just have here is the number of those sections we want to bake. Maybe we just want to print it on the parts. So what I want to do here is to give the numbers out. We exactly need a 46 here, a 0 here. or you can just simply make a series of numbers if you want to rearrange them. For example, I can just delete that and give a series of number which starts with 0 and goes up with 1, and the count has to be the number of these curves. So I'm going to go to the sets, use the list length. So this is just an advanced tip you can use. Find the length of these and give that to the count. You can see that we have 61 of them, and give that to the text. Okay, so you can see exactly that's the numbers we had here, and we can justify that at the middle center of the parts or at the numbers here. Okay, the size we can just give that 1.1. Control that here, and that's it. So if I just want to do that, I bake that into maybe layer 1 and bake those curves into layer 2. And if I just close this, you will see that because these are hatches, what you have to do is to simply select all of them. I'm going to go to the select layer 1, select objects, and just explode them in Rhino. That's really easy, and you will have those curves on it like this. There is also some plugins which will give you just a stroke, simple stroke for that, but this is also visible if you want to have something like this. That was the plan, and this is how you can use this technique to have a connection. That is really beautiful. You can see that these are closed curves, and they can be used to be fabricated for a puzzle, or maybe just it can be even a facade of a building which you want to delete those parts and connect them like that, so it's like a puzzle of Voronoi cells on it. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope that you liked this video. So remember to like it and comment below. What do you think about this? Was it useful to you? And see you next time.